Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. Where does time go, guys? We are back with another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. And as always, I tell you, this is one of my favorite places to be. I'm your amazing host, Shanasia Washington, streaming from the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And what do we say here? We have another amazing lady, and we waste no time jumping into her story. You know the drill. She tells us her name, where she's streaming from, and we jump right into this story. So without any further waiting time, here's our very beautiful guest for today.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Veronique James. I am streaming from the very hot Scottsdale, Arizona. I think currently we're looking at 110, 112, 112 degrees. But so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Southern California and found my way to Arizona because I went to the University of Arizona, bear down, love those Wildcats. I started in the architecture program and then felt like I was missing the creative and the theory behind what I passionately love to do, which is to solve problems through visual communication. So I switched to a Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design. And I was very privileged to have a supported family that took me through the end of school. But when my parents supported me, they said, when you graduate, you're essentially on your own financially. So unlike many of my friends and peers, I got to go and travel the world after graduation. It was an expectation that I found a job right away. And so preparing myself for success, I looked at all kinds of graphic design studios and advertising agencies all over the United States to realize that entering junior income probably wasn't going to work in a New York or a Dallas or a San Francisco. So I looked right in my immediate backyard here in Phoenix and found myself at a small 8-person women-led agency. And it was an amazing experience for me. I found an opportunity to wear multiple hats and learn quite a bit from drinking from the fire hose and working on hospitality brands and really unique restaurant brands, and what an incredible experience it was. Simultaneously, on my personal side, I got married very early out of school. I think that we all think that we know who we are as young adults, right when we graduate. And that was an interesting time for me because throughout the first year of my marriage, I realized quickly that probably wasn't the best decision. And due to the separation of my first marriage and that divorce, I fell into a considerable amount of debt because of the dissolution of assets and some other personal issues in regards to spending on behalf of my ex-husband. So that being said, my life was in a bit of shambles. I was recently divorced, sort of lost in what path I wanted to take. And during that year, I was also recruited to a large agency here in Phoenix. And it's funny, I call them large now, but we, as the James Agency, which is the agency I own now, is just about the same exact size as that large agency of which I worked for back when I was in my 20s. That being said, I loved the clients that we worked on. I loved the large budgets and the opportunity to continue to grow my professional career as an art director and oversee these amazing photo shoots and work on some incredible hotel brands. But I didn't love the culture and the disconnect that I was feeling between that agency that I worked for and the clients. There seemed to always be this contention of lack of transparency and frustration. And as a creative being, that can be extremely difficult when you pour your heart into your work and you're excited and passionate and the client's consistently frustrated. So I was at an intersection in my mid-20s of recently being divorced and unfortunately coming out of that divorce being left with a nearly 400 credit score. So essentially being in a really difficult financial position And that was right around the time when the market started to shift. If you remember, that was a very difficult time in the real estate industry in the mid to late 2006, 7, and 8. I recognize there's no time like the present to maybe reinvent my path. And so I started to freelance out of the desperation and need to, overcome some of these financial obstacles. And so I would go work at my day job at the large agency from 8 to 5 or 8 to 6. And then I would come home and eat dinner and quickly start working on my freelance clients, which was either the local tanning salon or maybe the landscaping company. So quite the contrast from the large national accounts I was working on. But I enjoyed it. I loved having a passion for my own future and having that clarity with my clients. And I was having a lot of fun being a freelancer. And it got to the point where that business of mine became it was a perpetuitous business. It became actually really substantial to the point where I was making more money as a freelancer working my 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. job versus my 9 to 5. So in this time of looking forward and definitely taking a step inner to myself and understanding what I wanted, I took the leap of faith and I left my corporate day job, which was very stable and very lucrative because I was craving something more. I believed that there is a way to have a passionate career while also building trust and integrity with clients and working and surrounding ourselves with people who share the same vision of culture and alignment when it comes to what we love to do every day. And so I took that opportunity, took that break, went ahead and worked forward towards building this micro business, which fast forward today is celebrating its 20th year, its 20th anniversary in middle of March of 2025. And I have 45 employees, a 12,000 square foot office here in Scottsdale. And we work on hotels and restaurants and destination marketing and very unique brands. But more importantly, this is a safe place to work. I do not have any capital partners. We are a debt-free company, and it is such a privilege to have such a tenured member leadership group that believes in the same vision that I do. So that's kind of the summary of my story. I could probably go on for 20 or 30 minutes with even more of the idiosyncrasies of what got me here. But really the principle of why the agency exists and who I am today as both a mom and as a wife to my 2 amazing children really was born out of some of that adversity that I went through when I was younger in my 20s.
What a beautiful journey. And I have to honor you with roses now. You don't look like you should have a 20-year firm. Let's just start there. So
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Beautiful. You know what stuck out? You said that you were working at a firm and then now you own one. Mm-hmm. The same size.
It's a privilege, and it's unique to call yourself a founder and CEO of an organization. And I know that so many young women aspire to be different or to break through that clutter. And it's possible. It is capable, right? For if you have a passion and a drive, what it really takes is that, consistency. It's not easy, but it is simple to be consistent and have patience to show up for yourself. So to your point, I definitely swim in a sea of male-dominated industry. My peer leaders of other agencies, it's definitely male-dominated. But it is definitely a special place to say that I've curated the work-life experience that I believe in and that other people get to benefit from on a daily basis. And it is also extremely rewarding, and I don't take it for granted that these employees feed their families and support their families because of something that I've created out of a desire that I personally needed, and now it's impacting them as well.
Oh, I love it. And another thing that's kind of a buzz term now is safe place to work. People are thriving and looking for places that are considered safe. Describe that for me. What's safe to you, and what do you keep in mind to make sure that it continues to be safe?
Absolutely. I think culture is also somewhat a homogenistic word thrown around, a buzzword in business. And so, and sometimes they can be used as one and the same. So culture for us, while, the dogs in the office and the music playing and the casual atmosphere and the pranks and all those things are fun, for us, culture is really fundamentally founded on the backbone of that safe place to work. One of the books that I love is Brene Brown's Dare to Lead or Daring Greatly. Both are excellent, and she talks about getting things on the table within 24 hours, or she uses the phrase rumbling. A safe place for us to work. I would say creative environments in general are very tender. You think about the composition of people who work here, they're very creative and emotional and animated. And it's a very subjective industry. If clients are, you're performing for a client in the sense that you're creating or problem solving something, and you're exposing yourself vulnerably out into their opinions. And we try to train our team to not only divorce themselves from the work, which I think is important for them to feel comfortable in empowering themselves to design or create a strategy or build a media plan, but more importantly, to work together. And so many agencies will train their staff to take things as far as you can by yourself, and they sort of inbreed this idea of like cards to the chest and collaboration is bad. And for us, we believe many hands make for light work. And so the safe place to work narrative is it's okay to expose yourself internally when it comes to your work or your problems or your questions, to bring people along, because you're going to get there faster with less mistakes. And then if there is a challenge or a criticism or something that happens that arises within the firm, we also all own the responsibility of getting it on the table as soon as possible. We don't want anybody carrying that water, because we know that can hinder the creativity and the inspiration and the culture. And so what I love about that is we all believe in this ethos. So no one's ever wondering, gosh, is that person thinking something else, or what's going on behind the scenes there? We are all extremely direct with ourselves as a culture, and there's a commitment there. So if we see somebody that's failing, we abruptly get to that point. We ask them out of love and consideration, gosh, it seems like you're having a bad day or a bad week, or you're just not showing up at the level that we know you can. How can we help you, and what is our part in this to help you level up, versus the pointing fingers and the backstabbing that I think you often see in corporate culture these days. So it's a ethos. It's the safe place to work mentality for us is really understanding that we're here to be together, to do good work, to win together, to lose together. And that carries through into our relationships with our clients. And I think that's a testament to why we have some really low churn from an employee base. And then we have these really long-standing clients as well, which is extraordinarily unique as well.
Oh, I love it. And I love what you said about many hands making light work. We have to definitely align to that, because so many times, especially in corporate culture, it's like take all this stuff so you can get the glory and you can get this opportunity to climb the ladder, not realizing that there's so much power in those collaborations. And I found that strong collaborations in places that I am weak, Veronique, there are people that are strong in those areas, and it keeps this machine rolling because we can play off of each other's strength. So I am so happy you made that point, because it is something that I not only subscribe to, but I try to put into the people that I work for. Let me
Yeah,
ask you
and we
this.
interview. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, go ahead, continue.
I was just going to say, and we're also very thoughtful in how we interview potential new employees too, because we want to see that they're going to embrace the philosophy of that collaboration and that vulnerable type of communication, because it's not for everybody. We understand that can be kind of uncomfortable. This is not a head down, kind of fall behind the crowd type of work environment.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And you know what? Something you mentioned in your intake form, I have to have you touch on this. You said that everyone's not cut out to be a founder. Speak about it. Speak about it
I
from
think
your
that there's a potential, if somebody has that desire, that deep thirst for learning to leave a mark, I definitely think that you should try. Being a founder or a principal of a business, a CEO, is not for the faint of heart by any means. You are exposing your leadership, and oftentimes there isn't a playbook, there isn't a rule book for how to make some of the complex decisions as it pertains to navigating, employees or HR or business challenges. And that can be difficult because it can feel like you're on your own island. And I'm very fortunate. I have peer groups and organizations that I lean on for those experience-based learning to be able to not have to reinvent the wheel every time. But it is not for the faint of heart. And the reason why I say that is because when you start to get to that level, everybody has an opinion about you and how you run your business and the decisions that you're making. And so it's very important. And some of my most favorite people that I follow in my podcast world or books, they all make a concerted effort to really cut out the noise, right? To simplify, because those opinions on social media or maybe the survey feedback or whatever it is can really influence, as we know, and even in our daily lives, can influence how we show up for us, for ourselves, as well as for other people.
Beautiful. I think here, and to touch on this a little bit more, because you talked about this period where you are now prioritizing kind of this consultative energy. There's a pivot that has happened in business. And that's another part that many, especially newer entrepreneurs, don't understand. You have to be able to kind of know and keep your antenna up as to when it's time to pivot. Talk about pivoting and how important it is and how that has been something that you've led with in your time.
Yeah, gosh, pivoting is something that as a founder or CEO, you get really innately used to making those quick changes and adaptability. When you're in the early part of your journey and maybe you're consulting and you're needing to pivot, I think it's often popular to want to seek validation or external sort of data to make those decisions with confidence. When I made that decision, I looked at time. Time was my most valuable currency. And I knew that I had a new life to live coming up. I was dating the man who I'm married now. I knew that I wanted a lifestyle where I could still spend time and explore the world. And I knew I wanted to be a mother relatively soon. And there was no way that I was going to be able to compromise my time and continue the path of which I was on. And so that consulting and doing it all by myself, while they say keep it small, keep it all, was very lucrative. Bringing people on as contractors and eventually W-2 employees allowed me to scale and give back my time. There's an excellent book called How to Buy Back Your Time, which talks a lot about that principle. I think that pivoting really comes down to value and what each person values in their life. And those pivots can either positively or negatively impact you. And impact is a big word in my life. It's when I talk about time, 10xing my time. Everything I do in my life now has to yield some kind of positive return, specifically as it pertains to time and the categories of my business, my personal well-being, and my family. And if it doesn't fall into those three buckets, then it's a heck no, not a heck yes. I'm sure you've heard that before. So that kind of goes back to that clarity and that certainty of intent and cutting out the noise. And as we grow as professionals, especially women as female professionals, life becomes quite demanding. We get pulled in so many directions, and it's very easy to lose ourselves. So pivoting for me is about the conscientious decision to return value back to myself, which, like I said, is time.
Time these days is so tricky. I feel like this is my personal thing that since COVID, it's been like a time warp me. So when I came out of it, it was this whole thing about time and being intentional and aligning with the things I want and speaking to it. So I tell people time is, that currency is one that you cannot get back. So when you are thinking about, what you do with your time, especially as it pertains to your business and even your children, you best be serious and you best be giving your time a word and a plan. I said all
That's
the time.
right.
So I'm so happy that you inserted time as a driver for you, because it surely is for me. Now, in all of the success, Veronique, we have to ask you, like, what's the next? What is the vision now for the James Agency? What things is at the top of the list of either enhancements or even maybe some things you may be taking away? Just talk to us about that future place.
Sure. I'll do a quick look back. You talked about COVID. COVID was a big pivot for us. If you can imagine, as an agency, we were representing a lot of hotels and restaurants and destination marketing. And on that fateful day in March, the agency took a 62% net loss in about 30 minutes. It was definitely a critical time in our business as we were experiencing a hockey stick of growth year over year prior to that. And because we're a debt-free agency, I was able to really look introspectively and decide, in contrast to my other, peer leaders, I did not do any furloughs, I didn't do any pay cuts, and I certainly didn't lay anybody off. And I decided that there was an opportunity for us at that moment to pivot our model and apply all of the incredible knowledge that we had learned over the previous 15 years and become somewhat industry agnostic. And so the formula of which we learned how to connect a brand to its target audience worked whether it was business to business or business to consumer. We like to call it business to human now. And out of that was birthed a really great strategy process, which we call Stratagem. And it was a very pivotal time for us with intention because we started finding that a lot of clients were wondering what's next. COVID was very interesting. It was very disruptive. And while they knew who their target audiences were and how they needed to communicate today, they didn't know how to look into the crystal ball 3, 4, 5 years into the future. And we found that a lot of agencies didn't either, but we had figured out a way to confidently bring a client along to give them the certainty and essentially the GPS coordinates for what that should look like in the future. So now looking forward as an agency, we've really started to harvest a lot of our efforts around this strategic marketing for what comes next narrative. And it's been extremely positive because I think with AI coming up and a lot of agencies still being very project first or deliverable first, we're telling our clients, let's take a beat. Let's really look very closely and do an audit and strategic plan before we go to pen to paper on any kind of marketing or communications effort so that we know there's going to be efficacy in those campaigns. I just added 4,000 square feet to this office. So like I mentioned, we're at 12,000 square feet, extending our engagement with this building until June of 2028. I like to set these milestones for myself. And at that time, I'd really like to be around 60 employees. But I want to combat the large agency format misnomer of everybody being a number and the CEO not being around. It's important that we continue to maintain this really deep culture connection, this unique differentiator that we love as this boutique mentality, but operating at that large scale agency format. It's our hope that we acquire a building. My husband and I have a passion for real estate and building really memorable, I would say, environments for our community. So think long game professionally. We're looking at potentially starting a community of artistic enthusiasts that maybe could be housed in this building as well. So some exciting times for the agency. The good news is I still have a lot of fuel in me and I'm pedal to the metal when it comes to the velocity of the firm. And I don't see myself or the team slowing down anytime soon.
I love it, Veronique. That's absolutely beautiful. Did y'all catch that Veronique said that through all this craziness, she retained team. She did not do any layoffs. So if you're not clapping out there and applauding in the land of watching this, then something's wrong, because that stood out to me. And I am so just honored. I'm pretty sure your team is blessed that you were able to maintain staff. I have to get here quickly. I know that, we were approaching the near the end of our interview, but talk to me about this, because obviously you've grown teams and you're going to continue to grow them. Talk to me about the process. You may not be directly involved with this now in your agency, but the process and thought process of finding good quality talent. What I am hearing across many types of business owners, not just in the creative space, but all over, is finding that talent and retaining that talent. I already see some secrets on how you're retaining them, all right? You guys should catch it too.
Yeah.
But talk about that catch.
Definitely a secret sauce there for sure. And agencies or even businesses alike that do it well, hold on to that with gold. For me, I did not go to school for business. I reminded you guys that I went to school for art. So I really didn't know how to build a corporation. But what I did do was follow my intuition. I talked about being a safe place to work. And what I needed personally or selfishly was to surround myself with a community of people who were ethical and intentional and creative and inspired me every day. Attracting talent is one thing. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. Being genuine within the four walls of your organization needs to match the external reputation. And if that doesn't match, you're going to have a clutter problem. There's going to be a friction there. So for us, retention is also incredibly critical. But when we go into interviewing, we are planning for retention. So we have goodness gracious, sorry about that. We have a 5-step interview process. And while it can feel laborious to an applicant, we are working the potential staff member through of course, professional resume review to see if they have the capabilities and skill sets. We do a panel review to understand deeper their core why and their intention. What do they seek in their journey with the agency? Because we believe it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We do a culture interview where we typically take that applicant off-site to a restaurant, and the people who would be with them on that interview are those they would be rubbing elbows with every day. And that gives that applicant the opportunity to also see how they would fit in with our culture. And we're looking at very important things during that meeting. And that's a critical component to making sure that this person's going to fit within our family, not just be somebody here who wants to win. All these different steps layered with an assessment of some sort allows us to identify a long-standing applicant. And then once they become part of the James Agency tribe, understanding what are those goals and expectations that they have out of their professional journey. Because as I mentioned, it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And so for us, retention is really about how do we curate a journey that fulfills your professional needs. If it's somebody who's creative and they want to learn leadership skills, then we're going to certainly put them in positions of opportunity for mentorship or to be menteed, whatever it may be, mentored or menteed. If somebody's looking to tighten their technical skills, we're sending them to conferences or we're aligning them with subject matter experts outside of the office. We offer 500 level up bucks to every one of our staff members here in the office through the year. And it's like a mini bucket of play money, for lack of better words, that anybody here in the office can use those $500 each to sign up for a conference or maybe take a webinar or sign up for some coaching. And so we're giving these people the opportunity to curate that journey that they need to be able to feel satisfied and inspired, because I think that's really critical.
Well, there is some magic in that off-siting, like, when you take the new person off campus outside of the office, because I remember when I used to manage like a very large, diverse team, and every time I would take them to lunch, I would get these very, very intimate like views of their personality. It's just something about that change outside of the office sometimes that can shine a new light into someone. So I'm happy you mentioned that. You really get to see and envision how they are just without the building.
The pressure, right? Yeah, because interviews can be so intimidating, right? When we get all nervous, we leave the interview, we're like, gosh, I wish I had said that, or I wish I had asked that question, right? This sort of takes that away. And because working together is important, right? Mm-hmm. We see each other more than oftentimes we see our families during the day. So that's a really critical decision to be making, to bring somebody on to work within our family.
Yeah, especially because you work so hard to build it. So I like that you brought that in here, because I definitely know that difference in having community outside of the office and outside of the formalities. I have to go here. I have to give you a reflection question. So Veronique, we are now celebrating Veronique's 80th birthday. We see you there. We see you there with your family, your children, maybe still some of the people who's running the firm now. What are you hoping they're saying about Veronique, her legacy, her vision, and really just the woman, not necessarily the James Agency, but the woman, Veronique? What are you hoping to hear in that room?
Oh gosh, what a great question and powerful question. At my 80th birthday, I'm hoping that people feel like I impacted them in a very special way. I always try to make whoever I'm speaking to feel like they're the most important and only person in the room. And that's hard to do, because as busy as we all are, we can somewhat brush off that moment that we had with that person. And you never really realize whether that means a lot to them or a little. But I try so hard to listen with intent and receive and feel grateful. In our home, we have a sign where we walk in the door and it says, "Start each day with a grateful heart." And I'm hoping that when people remember me, when I'm gone, they said, gosh, that girl showed up every day with gratitude and really made everybody that she talked to or invested in or mentored extremely, made them feel extremely important. And I feel grateful for everybody who I come in contact with and have the privilege to connect with.
I love it. The spirit of gratitude, it will win. I can tell you that the spirit of gratitude is something that's always going to be powerful and something that I subscribe to on a daily basis. I cannot start my day without some form of gratitude, Veronique.
Yeah,
Well, in this
good.
interview, we can't leave without you telling the people where to find you, Veronique. Also,
Sure.
I want you to give just the high level. I know we've talked about it, but this is where they need to know specifically, like those top 3 services, where to find you, and really where to connect with you if they needed to get into those services.
Great. Thanks for that opportunity. So, as I mentioned, the James Agency is an integrated full service agency, all facets of marketing, public relations, web, media planning, strategic consulting, social media, you name it, we do it. We are recognized as one of the top agencies in the US. And where you can find us, of course, thejamesagency.com is our website where you'll learn more about our client work and some of our services and much more about our culture and history. And if you want to see more on socials, on all platforms, it's the James Agency on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share that.
Absolutely. This is what this is all about. We have to create these spaces that not only highlight our businesses, but also to give us a good place for conversation. Our world needs it. Just being here on this podcast, the transformative nature of these women, I have been inspired. I have been able to pour. It's just been one of the places in my life where I said it has to be reciprocal. And this podcast has allowed me the space to do that. So we're going to cue to your final thoughts, Veronique. If someone was to just skim across this and they really didn't get anything out of this entire essence and presence of you, I want you to give them something to leave on and something that best just encapsulates this particular interview.
My one-liner, my takeaway is follow your gut. Your intuition is always right. There's going to be a lot of outstanding opportunities to be influenced by other people and other opinions and social media and political changes. But following your intuition always, or following my intuition always led me to the right outcome. And I recommend everybody do the same.
Well, there you have it. What a beautiful and I think very, very powerful episode. Thank you for sharing the journey. I am just happy to know that it's still going, it's still emerging. You have a lot of fight in you. I can see it. So you stay firm and keep pivoting, as we talked about, to make sure that the James Agencies be all that it wants to be and more.
Thank you.
I tell you guys
Thank
every time, the Her Voice Shines podcast, we don't skimp on guests. We keep it real simple. We keep it real, and we just talk about the things that really matter here. So until next time, we tell you that we love you always. Remember to let your voice shine, and we'll be back next time with another amazing woman, and we're out.